Hello, everyone. Welcome to another forecast. It is Claire, and we're going to be talking about March of 2025. And it is huge. I can't believe we're already here. That's thing number one. I'm always surprised that we're here, but it's it's going to be like a good hour and a half today if I'm super efficient. Otherwise, like go get some snacks because it'll be a 2 hour thing. If you're here live, come and go as you please. No expectations. If you're welcome or if you're coming back, welcome. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna have a bunch of links below. If I mention anything, look below and it might be down there. Otherwise, you can always ask me questions too on the right-hand side of your screen. You can also interact with the other astrology nerds over there. So feel free to share whatever you want. I'm not super good at keeping track of it during these. I'm not as good as my monthly Q&A where I'm there purposely to be with the chat. But I will try to circle back around a few times today and make sure I'm not missing anything. I'm gonna go through most of the month. I mean, because there's just like so many dates of interest that it fills up most of the month. If I skip over something that you really wanted to cover or know about today, just let me know in the comments or the chat. And I think that's it. I don't have any announcements really. Everything's the same. I'm still doing all of my same professional activities. I am seeing clients regularly every week, and I do this once a month. I do my monthly question and response time, astrology Q&A time once a month on YouTube, and that's basically it. I'm on Threads. I'm kind of on Instagram a little bit. It's all under Aligning Light Astrology. And then, of course, you can look at my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. And then that's where you can sign up for my newsletter if you want to keep up with me. I do a once a month newsletter that I actually have going out like right about now. But sign up, and that's where you're going to get kind of a one-stop shop for all of my events, all of my goings on, and the discount codes, which it is my monthly tradition to forget my own discount code. Root. It's Root. That's the upcoming one. It's not, I think it might be valid actually, but it goes until April 1st and it's ROOT. And that's going to get you 10% off any birth chart reading. So that's my God, I actually remembered the discount code. So you can't mark that off on your bingo card. Okay, let me jump into everything. There's going to be timestamps eventually. It does take me a day or two to get the timestamps up, so I apologize for that in advance. I know that these things are long, but I do go fairly chronologically. Um, Let me think. Oh, yeah. And then I wanted to call attention to a couple videos that I already did. Uh, Namely, I have Venus going through Pisces and Aries. I did rising sign horoscopes for that. So check that out. And I'm not gonna get as much into Venus's time in Pisces and Aries because I go into it very much in depth in that other video. Similarly, I am not in today's forecast going to spend like a ton of time on Venus retrograde because I have a whole video about that as well. I have rising sign horoscopes for Venus retrograde, which is starting on the 1st of March. That'll be our first thing that we talk about. But check out that video too. That's going to be a deep dive into that. And then I'm very happy with that video because I decided to read The Myth of Inanna, not in full, but I kind of skimmed through it. And it was just very illuminating and really fun. So check it out. I think that's all of my old business. Let me check on the chat really quick because I noticed some people here. Hello, I'm seeing some familiar faces. Welcome back. Oh, we got a Pisces baby in the chat. Pisces has entered the chat. Yeah, and we'll be talking about the eclipses. We'll be talking about the void of course moons. Um, yeah, there's a lot. So I guess, maybe one other little note that I don't need the chart to show. Usually I go through a little meditative moment. I'm skipping it today because we got too much to do, if you want to know where my priorities still lie. But I would like to say that, usually the reason why I do those meditative moments before we jump into the future is because it is so important to be grounded into now, especially when we're doing these more anticipatory exercises that can often trigger anxiety stuff in the brain of a lot of people. Um, But as we're moving into this very busy astrological month, and I know that a lot of like pop astrology online is very doomsday-y. It just is really sensationalizing and it likes to tell you how you're going to feel. Oh, you're going to feel whatever, just because there's an environment around you does not mean that you need to adopt whatever that environment is. It doesn't mean if there's a song going on around you, you do not need to sing along. So I likewise, even if there's like a very active sky, that doesn't mean that it's going to be chaos down here. It really depends on who you are and what the context is and all of that. So I just want to give a couple little caveats because I know there's a lot of people that are having a bit of anticipation anxiety over the month of March and into April. Uh, and then curiosity. That this is what I try to do with myself is when I find myself going from a place of curiosity more into a place of concern, fear. I just noticed that. I don't judge myself for it, but it's good to notice because it's not as helpful to try to predict something that we can never predict. So astrology is archetypally, I was just hearing this, and now it's a quote. I just shared it on Threads too, but I feel like it's Richard Tarnas said that astrology is archetypally predictive, not like actual like reality predictive in terms of like the details, like of what exactly is going to go, how things are going to go down. But we can guess the themes and the general quality of those themes that will be present. And we can use that information to try to best prepare for the future. So again, meditative moments aside, just notice when you are kind of getting out of that curiosity and more into concern and try to pull it back into curiosity. Ooh, what could happen? How interesting. I get to see this. I get to see Neptune and Aries play out. What could it be? There's that. And then the other tool that I would like to provide just in terms of being in the present moment after or around messing with astrology, which goes into the past, present, and future, um, is coming back to agency and action. So no matter what stories I'm thinking about that might go down in the future, whether they are hopes or fears, I can come back to the moment now and be like, what can I do that is actually skillful and helpful? So coming back to that present moment, asking the self, okay, this may or may not happen in the future. What can I do now? What can I do, even if it's a small thing that would be skillful or helpful, even if that is just taking a breath, chilling out, making some snacks. So it's a good thing to come back to the moment. There. I'm gonna shelve that. And last little caveat thing, I guess, too, before we jump into it, just know that your own birth chart is going to dictate very much how the transits in the sky are going to land for you and how they will reflect. So, for instance, we're going to talk a lot about Venus retrograde, Mercury retrogrades today. If you have Venus or Mercury retrograde in your birth chart, for instance, those times in transit are not as big of a deal for you. And actually, they can be kind of nice and feel like they jive with you. So just know things depend on your birth chart. I think that's it. Okay. So let's talk about the present because just recently we had Mars station. And with Mars stationing, it's a good thing to remember that they're still pretty slow. They're going to be, I mean, if we go forward 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, they're really only moving a couple degrees. So while I am very hopeful that Mars and Mars ruled things like the Aries part of our charts, the Scorpio parts of our charts, I am hopeful that those topics will move forward more and more progressively in proportion to Mars's speed. So once we get to mid-April into May, then I expect us to really be feeling quite different than we do right now. A couple, a couple little Mars and retro or Mars stationing from retrograde to direct. It doesn't really matter in terms of this story. The point is that Mars is loud. When Mars is stationing or any planet is stationing, their significations just get more prominent, more loud temporarily. And my Mars and Cancer stationing story was yesterday. I accidentally steamed the entire kitchen. I like forgot about a pot of water boiling on the stove. And as you do, like happens. And I don't know, it was probably a good 15 minutes. And like I go back and the whole kitchen is like super steamy and just very way too moist. So I had to go around and like I just wiped down all the walls. I was like, well, this is one way to get the kitchen really clean, I guess. But I was like, yeah, this is a Mars station experience. And just in general, I've been feeling a little slow. Granted, Mars is in charge of my career partially. So yeah, it's been hard for me to do my career thingies lately. I've been feeling a little slow myself. Uh, that's about it though. So hang in there, everyone. Hang in there, Mars babies, especially if you're an Aries rising or a Scorpio rising. I think you're going to progressively start to feel better now in the next month. If you've been feeling slowish, uh, let me see. I think there was only one other point. Mercury. That was the only other thing I wanted to talk about before I give my dates of interest. So, oh, hello, Astrolofax. Thanks for the tips earlier, the nudge. I'm thinking about those S's like constantly. But I'm looking into it. My tabs, you should see them. They're indicative of effort. So we're going to try, everyone, I'm trying to work out some sound bugs. I think this might be one of my Venus Mercury retrograde things is trying to improve my sound. Uh, we'll see. Fingers crossed. Pray for me. And hello, KWOW. Yeah, they say it always goes back to the stars incline, but they do not bind. Yeah. So if there's astrology happening, it's going to reflect things. You get to decide how you respond to it, though, if we believe in that free will thing, which is a whole chestnut that we're not going to get into right now. Uh, no, I don't have a complex. Don't worry about it. Very much in jest, very lighthearted. Okay, Mercury, they are someone who has been a bit challenged. And if you go back to my question and response from February, I talk a lot, I spend a lot of time talking about Mercury being under the beams of the sun and how much bound, their own bound, gives them chariot or it gives them protection from the beams of the sun. Because there were a lot of plane accidents, aircraft accidents happening, at least in the United States, within the last month as Mercury has been really close to the sun and under those beams. And I had predicted that when Mercury was in their own bound in early Aquarius, that they would be protected and we wouldn't be having as many problems. It might be a good little window to do your Mercury things. That was not correct. No way that could be given the news. And it's interesting because then, and sad, but Mercury moved through the beams of the sun. And at this point, they're moving on, they're on the other side of the sun. They're starting to come out of the beams. And like last week, they were coming out of combust, and there was another aircraft incident. Now, thankfully, no one perished in that one. And that actually goes along too with the fact that a planet coming out of the beams is in better shape than a planet going into them. All to say, yeah, Mercury's not been having a good time. Mercury is in charge of communication, travel, buying and selling. Lots of the little details of things have been suffering lately. This is going to improve very shortly. How much time do we have left here? What is that? 13? We got like one more day, and they're going to be making their phasis, or Mercury is going to be appearing in the evening sky. And so that theoretically, Mercury is in better condition then, and we can hopefully see not as many sad headlines about travel incidences going forward. We'll see. We will see. All right. Also, they're out of the United States' Sibley chart's third house, which is also helpful for these purposes. And in that Sibley chart as well, if you know what I'm talking about, cool. If you don't worry about this. But if you're familiar with the US Sibley chart, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The ninth house is Leo. It's sun ruled. The sun was also really struggling over the last month. So especially in the United States, travel issues, yeah. And now that is behind us or getting to be behind us, So I just wanted to point that out that Mercury's been going through it and they are coming out of it more this month, even though I know we're going to have a retrograde or whatever eventually. Compared to last month, Mercury is improving right now. So that's what I have to say for old business. Um, Hello, Vic of the Woods. Hello, Sam. Yeah, we've got the emoji where they're like, I don't want to see. But there's a little bit of curiosity because you're peeking. I see it. Oh, that's great. All right. You guys are the best. I love you all so much. I say this a lot and I steal this from Thich Nhat Hanh, but they say that even a smile is a contribution. And so when I thank everyone for their contributions at the end of this, I really mean like everything. Hello, Kai. Nice to see you again. All right. Dates of interest. Let's do it. It's a big ol' list. It's ridiculous. Um, the 1st of March, Venus stationing retrograde. The 3rd of March, Mercury entering Aries. On the 13th, this is approximately when Venus is going to start to disappear in the evening sky. On the 14th, we get our first lunar eclipse for full moon lunar eclipse. I know that's redundant, but I say both because it took me personally like 4 years to memorize what full moon or new moon was which eclipse. So I like to say both. 3:15, Mercury retrograde. On the 20th, or Mercury stations retrograde on the 15th. On the 20th, Sun enters Aries. On the 22nd, Venus has a cazimi. On the 27th, Venus returns to Pisces. On the 29th, Mercury returns to Pisces. On the 29th, Saturn, that's approximately when they're going to reappear in the morning sky. We're going to get on that same day, on the 29th, our Aries new moon solar eclipse. And on the 30th, Neptune is entering Aries. And it's maybe not listed, but on the 1st of April, that's approximately Venus is going to be retrograde, but they're going to be reappearing and doing their phasis. And just so we put a nice little bookend on it. Venus stations direct April 12th. Check out the video. Uh, Extra dates of interest. Void of course moons. So there's a bunch of different definitions for what a void of course moon is. And if we go by the strictest, rarest, most industrial strength grade, it would be these Hellenistic void of course moons that last about 2.5 days. And this is a time when the moon is not making any contacts with any of the other planets in the sky. And it's a time when we don't usually like to initiate or begin things. In the old farmers' almanacs, the void of course moons were times when you don't hunt, don't plant, don't fish, don't, in the modern times, don't like make the cake. It's not going to look like the picture, the fancy cake from Pinterest. Don't do it. Don't sign the contract for the new thing you want to start. Uh, Now, some of us, and I'll give you these dates if they're not already below. Let me actually check. Did I do my job? Heck yes, I did do my job. Although I forgot the Venus cazimi in the dates of interest. But yeah, March 10th through the 13th is the first void of course moon. March 16th through the 18th, March 25th through the 27th, March 30th through April 1st. Those are days that, in general, if you can avoid starting things, great. Now, some of us work in environments where there's non-astrology people in there, and there's non-astrology people deciding when to do stuff. And so just know that if there are projects that are started or initiated or launched in March during these void of course moon dates, I don't know, it's not it's never about just one thing. It doesn't mean that that's going to be like the silver bullet to just end whatever you're doing, but it's not a good omen. It's not like a helpful thing. And it might mean that there's a few hiccups or a delay in things rolling out how you would like to see it. That could be the case. Now, one other little caveat with those void of course moons, I think the first day of it is the most intense. That's when the moon is the furthest away from making any other contacts. So for instance, let me just pull up the first one here. On March 10th, we've got Uh, yeah, is that real? Yeah, the moon interacts with, and these are just visible planets now I'm working with, so I'm not working with the outers. That's a good thing to note. Uh, the moon is going to interact with Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and then no one else until they reach the next sign, and then they'll be having an interaction with Jupiter again. So, I mean, at least it's nestled in between Jupiter. But all to say, that's a long period of time for the moon to not be having any other aspect with any other planet. And the most intense part is going to be the beginning. But then, even like, let's say when the moon gets into Virgo on the 11th of March or whenever that is. At this point, if you were like a Persian Islamic medieval astrologer, if you were a Renaissance astrologer, then you would be saying, it's all good, everyone. Green lights, go ahead. Void of course moon is over. And it kind of makes sense because then by the time the moon gets into Virgo, just by sign, they're in a new set of relationships with some new planets that they weren't in a relationship with when the moon was in Leo. So one could, that's why there's these different definitions, right? So I think I take it as gradients. It's like the first day of that, like the 10th is probably the worst of the time to start or initiate things or to go hunting, planting, or fishing. Um, the second day may be a little better after moon gets into Virgo. But if you want to play it safe, wait until the 13th. I think I put the AstroSeek calculator linked below as well. If I didn't, apologies. Go to Astro. No, I got the enclosure calculator down here, but not the void of course moon calculator. Check out astroseek.com, and they have a really great void of course moon calculator. And you can specify the time zone that you're in, and it'll give you the exact dates or times, I mean, the exact times of when these things start and stop. Okay, cool. I think that's the last general point until we jump into details. Uh, cool, cool. Let's go to the first of the month. Let's start. So Venus is stationing retrograde at 10 degrees of Aries on March 1st. Oh, wow. Look at that. The moon is right there to help us experience it even more. Now, even now, as I record this on the 25th, Venus is very slow. If I look at where we are now, yeah, 10 degrees, 29 arc minutes. They'll station at 10 degrees, 50 arc minutes. So we're almost there. And they've been slow. They've been loud as they slow down. And so you may be really noticing Venus and Aries around you. I've been noticing it in terms of my usual yum yums, my usual Venusian things of delight and pleasure have not been happening as easily as usual. Or I have been getting like a sadder version, or like my hair conditioner. I can't find it anywhere. Like I can't find my hair conditioner that I'm very picky about, and I'm bummed you know? So these are the things that happen, just like in the myth of Inanna. You go through and you see these demons that are kind of the anti-Venus at one point, and they describe what sounds like Venus retrograde. It's like those Venus things are harder to come by. Beauty, art, love, romance, easefulness, yum yums. Not to say we don't have any. I have definitely had some very yummy things, especially in the last day. Um, Potato-based things. So it's not like, I'm not doing fine, but it's like there's those little hiccups here and there. I'm noticing a little bit more with Venus things. And then again, go watch the video, but just in case, my retrograde horoscopes really deal with the Venus cazimi and the rebirth that is eventually going to happen around the 22nd of March with the Taurus and Libra house topics for whoever you are. So for this theoretical Virgo rising, it would be their ninth and their second that is undergoing this rebirth in the end of March. So go check out that video. Uh, Let me see if there's anything else I really need to say. Let me just give all of these Venus-y dates. So they entered their pre-retrograde shadow Venus on the 28th of January. So really like the whole month of February has been this lead up, getting ready for the retrograde. Venus moving over degrees that they will eventually retrace. So over the last month, Venus has been moving from 25 degrees of Pisces to 10 degrees of Aries. They're going to go back over that. And then in the post retrograde shadow, they'll be moving over it a final time. So, really, again, like February, if you've started to notice what could be Venus retrograde, yep, you're not imagining it. And then the middle of this journey is the 22nd of March. Venus stations direct on the 12th of April, and then they're out of that post retrograde phase by May 14th of 2025. So this story very much with Venus retrograde extends until mid-May. And then thankfully by June, we'll get a whole new ball game and Venus will enter into Taurus, and that is going to be on June 5th. So it really, and this is again why I made a whole nother video about it, is that the first half of 2025 is so marked by Venus really being in two signs of the whole zodiac. And then the second half of the year is characterized by Venus being not in those two places. So Venus stationing retrograde, it can be a time of doing things differently in relationship. It can be a time of approaching relationships differently, just from an internal point of view. You know, it might not look like anything differently too much on the outside, but maybe how you're approaching it could be different. Or it could be those very externally overt, obvious things that you're doing differently in relationship. There could be with Venus retrograde an examining of values, looking at does my life align with what I value, and then making those adjustments if need be, which is not always fun. If you are looking around at your life and you're like, wow, I really value XYZ, and my life reflects that, then a Venus retrograde, maybe your hair conditioner won't be great. But sometimes Venus retrograde can really show us what's important to us by showing us like it's not in our life or it's not in our life in the way that feels comfortable or without tension. So uh, this whole like values and Venus thing is really important during retrograde to consider. And then doing art, beauty, fun, pleasure in new ways. This can be the proverbial spicing up of the bedroom, trying different things with your sex life. And then also topics returning from the past. This can be a time of old friends coming back out of the woodwork, wanting to catch up. Totally fine, totally benign. It can be like the exes coming back or past people. It's just even in your mind, just past relationship things. Sometimes things from the past that used to be fun come back around again, or you remember a recipe that you used to like to make or find a cool thing in your closet. All of that can be the case. And then there can be changes. You might, in this exploration of what is fun, sexy, yummy, what you value, you find that you do like different things, or maybe things that you used to like, you do not like as much anymore. All of that can be part of the retrograde journey. And then finally, my last little theme for Venus retrograde would be inconsistency with Venus stuff. So any retrograde planet, historically, the authors were pretty firm that it wasn't Venus functioning at their most easeful. And so inconsistency with connection, relationship, art, beauty, pleasure between now and April 12th. Then this stuff starts to turn around on April 12th. So be flexible as best you can. Hopefully my conditioner comes back at end of April. Until then, I did buy a different one and it was fine. And you know what? Maybe I'm going to find that it's even better than my other one. We'll find out together. Let me see if anyone's got any questions about Venus retrograde. Otherwise, I am going to forge ahead. Ooh, someone's bringing a good, thank you, Astralifax. They're bringing a really good sextile to mind on the 2nd of April, which, okay, I know I usually like to cut it off in March. Of course, I have to cut it off somewhere. But sometimes it's like the Gregorian calendar. doesn't always jive with our lives. And so if there are those things early in the next month that are worth noting, like earlier, yes. So thank you. And I'm gonna actually make a note of that. And let's go back around. Um, let's see. Yeah, that's definitely one worth knowing about. Thank you. Someone's having some work changes. Yeah, and like if anyone's had any kind of change already happen, like right before these retrogrades, I think sometimes retrogrades can really just be a time of having to do things very differently or get used to a new setup. And so that kind of steep learning curve, getting it wrong a few times before you get it right, that just really fits with the retrograde time. So it becomes just descriptive and not anything to fear necessarily. Vic of the Woods, I'm not sure what you mean. Is event at 4:30? Oh, like this event? It starts at 3:30 Central Time. That's when I started. I don't know if that's what you're talking about. All right. Yeah, I got you. Yeah, thank you. Because we got a lot of vibe shifts. We got so many vibe shifts that are occurring. Okay. So the first like week of the month, besides Venus stationing, there wasn't like a ton that I saw happening. Uh, and besides then, Mercury switching signs. So let's look at Mercury's change in sign. That happens on the 3rd. They're going to be moving from Pisces into Aries. They're going to be drying off. They'll have just gotten done with their conjunction with Neptune. So actually, maybe I should back up. And let me make sure. Yeah. So I guess the very end of February, first couple days of March, over communicate. If you assume people know something, don't assume. Just double check, make sure everyone knows where to be, when, and with who on those first few days of March. Anytime Mercury is with Neptune, there can be some confusion with communication, travel, buying and selling. If you're buying or selling anything on the first few days of March, just be sure about the details, read the fine print, make sure there's no shenanigans, because there can be shenanigans. Rahu is around the North Node, more shenanigans. So that's why I'm leaning towards that. Not the best weather. If you can, I would say wait until the 3rd of March to do your mercurial things. You're buying, selling, trading, communicating, talking, listening, writing, et cetera, et cetera. Then they're going to be visible, direct in a fire sign. They're going to be applying to Venus, having relationships with both benefics. So they seem like they're in a bit better shape there. And that's pretty much all I have to say about Mercury and Aries. I guess, well, maybe one other thing. They're much faster than Mercury and Pisces. So after March 3rd, speech might happen quicker, sometimes too quick, sometimes impulsively. So if you are someone who has words kind of come out before it's too late, um, after the 3rd of March, you might have to put yourself on notice for a minute. Be mindful about speech if you need to. It also is just speed in general, which is so cool for so many things, but it makes sure that if there are situations where the context speed is not helpful, then dialing it down a bit. Um, Mercury's changing signs. Eventually, they're going to come back over the area that they are now, but we'll worry about that later. The next thing to talk about here is the 8th and the 8th, 9th, and 10th. So at this point, we've got 2 adherences cooking. And adherence is just when one planet is within 3 degrees of making a bodily conjunction or aspect with another planet. So we got within 3 degrees, and that's when it's going to be strongest, that interaction between those 2 planets. So around the 8th of March, we're going to have the sun really closing in on Saturn. So the sun is really strongly experiencing themes of discipline, maturity, delay, slowness, responsibility, duty, burden. The sun is experiencing themes of commitment, having boundaries, saying no, rejecting things, or being rejected. So this is where I'm going to put March 8th, 9th, 10th, maybe not when I would hand in any kind of application for anything. Or, there's some things where this could fit. Like, let's say you were accepting a commitment, like you were saying yes to a commitment. Then the 8th and 9th, that makes a lot of sense. So don't let that scare you. But if you're trying to get an affirmation, an approval, a yes, a Jupiter answer, March 8th and 9th are not good days to have the wind at your back and have help with that. So avoid those 2 days. If you have sensitive things happening there. And then at the same time, same deal, we're having Mercury moving into Venus. And it's really interesting, just the dice roll of different speeds going on right now. We've got these planets that are in Contra Antiscia. Am I right? Yes, I am. Contra Antiscia. So these two, this is the axes of the equinox. So we get our spring or fall equinox depending on your hemisphere. And the sign right before it, Pisces, this is a sign that has, God, now I always get them mixed up. It's the same rising ascensional time as Aries. They have this minor sympathy where it's not like an aspect. They don't share an aspect. They're in conjunct, they're in aversion, but they've got like this minor relationship. It's kind of like a tin can telephone, like a really crappy, poor telephone connection between these planets. So that's really interesting. It's like we've already got Venus and Mercury's retrograde binding together Aries and Pisces life topics for people so much in the first half of the year. This is just one more thing to really weave together the Pisces and Aries part of your chart and how those topics are working in tandem. So then on the 11th of March, these adherences are going to complete, perfect, and we're going to get the actual conjunctions of these planets. So all to say, like, there's a vibe the 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th as these planets meet. And I think it's themes that are more serious with Saturn and Sun, more about responsibility, duty, commitment, challenges, obstacles, challenges basically. And then Venus and Mercury, it's like the relational planet and the planning, thinking, communicating planet together. Um, it's almost like they're problem solving or tinkering or playing around with something over in Aries. They've got some ideas, they've got some creativity, they maybe have got some relationships or some connections going on in there that are interesting. It's like they're bringing together relationships and this planning, thinking planet. So I don't know, whatever you got going on, long story short, look around at your commitments, your responsibilities, your relationships in mid-March. And I think it'll just be a time to really reflect and decide, yeah, is this what I want? And which of these things do I need to reject and say no to? And which of these things are actually going to be supportive or people or places? So that was, I don't know, a funny, quirky little thing I noticed. And then there's not a ton. Oh, we get that first void of course moon. But then our next thing is the eclipse. So let's not forget too that on the 10th, as the sun is moving towards Saturn. So yeah, I think there's going to be some energy of slowness going on around the 10th. Might be a slow Monday, but that is also that first void of course moon. So not a great Monday for starting. It's kind of like when I used to go in and if I had a couple days to get work done, the work would be all getting done on the second day, not the first day. Um, So the 11th happens. Then we have Venus disappearing from the evening sky, depending on your location. and your atmosphere and a bunch of other factors, Venus is going to start to get close enough to the sun within 15 degrees that we won't be able to see Venus anymore. So over the last several weeks, if you're watching at sunset, you would have seen Venus slowly getting lower and lower in the sky when the sun is setting to the point where they just disappear. And then in April, Venus will rise again in the morning sky in the east. And what I noticed, again, going back to that myth, the descent of Inanna, Inanna's descent to the underworld, there's this point where Venus says that, or Inanna says that they're on their way to the east. And I was like, of course you're on your way to the east, because right now you're in the west. During the descent, you're in the west, and you're on your way is when you rise, you'll be in the east. I was like, yeah, that's so great. I love that. You can hear the astronomy in the myth, which I dig heavily. Okay. Yay, Venus. Good luck. Hang in there, everyone. 40, what is it? This whole retrograde is 40 days and 40 nights, but the time Venus is disappearing is smaller. Then we have our first eclipse. Um, I don't, oh, PS, I guess I'll say this again at the end, but I don't think I'm going to do rising sign horoscopes for next month. I think I'm going to listen to the void of course moons and just like chill out and not create as much stuff. So apologies if anyone was looking forward to that. I don't think I'm going to do anything with the eclipses. Maybe in September, I'll do rising sign horoscopes for those. But what I want everyone to do is find Virgo in their birth chart and then look at what house Virgo is in. And look at this full moon. So this is a lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipse, you can see the moon. It's full moon on the opposite side of the zodiac wheel from the sun, and they're within the right amount of space to the nodes to be considered an eclipse, where now the path of the sun and the moon, because they can kind of be going in the same degree. Uh, what is that? Latitude wise, longitude wise? Yeah, longitude wise. But they're not always at the same latitude, up and down wise. During an eclipse, not only are they coming together longitudinally, but also longitudinally and latitudinally. Oh my gosh. And that's why one makes the other disappear. So, long story short, find the life topics that are associated with Virgo for you. And this full moon is going to be shining an extra bright light at those life topics. So for this theoretical Sagittarius rising, this would be in their place of career in their 10th house. So something about their career is being lit up, highlighted. This is like a very strong, powerful full moon, extra powerful. So then extra powerful culminations, fruitings, peakings of activity, maybe that began 6 months ago. So you can even consider what was going on last October-ish during those last eclipses. It was like September 17th and October 2nd. If you want to look back, your homework, look at your calendar, see what you were starting around last September, October of 2024. As we enter into March, maybe we're seeing a fruiting of all of that work you've done over the last 6 months. It can also be realizations. I've heard Rick Levine talk about, he gives the metaphor of like an eclipse can be like turning off a light and, or like the light is usually off and then it gets turned on for just a second. That's what it is. And you see everything and then the light goes back off. So if you have any moments of realization around March 14th, yeah, it could just be a moment of realization like, wow, look at my career. That's interesting. Then this will open the eclipse window between eclipses. I mean, for me, the party kind of starts as soon as the moon enters into that sign that it will have an eclipse in. So for me, the eclipse party, I'm going to be making my pina coladas. Actually, no, that's for the end of the month. I make pina coladas during solar eclipses. It's a personal tradition. And I make my box. I have my box where you poke the hole so you can look at the eclipse without, ruining your eyes. Um, that's for later. Anyway, it's like March 12th Central Time. Actually, that's when the moon is going to start to get into the eclipse window. So at this point, this is where I'll be like running around my house, like putting salt around it and stuff. Uh, and then, yeah, it happens on the 14th at exactly 1:54 in the morning. So in the wee hours of the 14th. So this means if you are in Europe or Africa, this eclipse for you is going to be more like the morning and the afternoon of March 14th on Friday. And then for more the global Eastern time zones, Asia and into like Oceania, that's going to be more the end of the day on Friday on March 14th. Um, Nothing to do, I don't think, unless you've got your like rituals like me that I like to do to get ready for them. But it's a good time to notice and watch and just pay attention. And if there is drama around you, you can do whatever you want. I mean, sometimes eclipses are really powerful moments to lean into something, or a powerful moment to, like in the case of a solar eclipse, like cut something off that you really want to be done and then totally move on anew. So they can be times to do stuff, but just know you're kind of, it's a spicier election if there are such a thing. Overall, though, for the average bear, there's nothing to do. Just know that it's going to be activating the Virgo part of your chart, and it's going to be highlighting things. So the great beginnings and endings eclipse, that's at the end of the month. That's not this one. All right, let's talk about Mercury. They're going to be doing their retrograde the next day. How interesting. The ruler of this eclipse is about to do a redo, a rethinking of things. Now, they're also in Aries. So really the Aries topics, the Aries parts of our chart, we're going to be needing to be extra flexible, adaptable, experimental, trying new things. If it doesn't work out the first time, that's okay. Definitely by mid-March, this is where if you've got, or like try to avoid having back-to-back meetings, back-to-back engagements. Give yourself wiggle room in between, over communicate. If you're having to promise anything to anyone, or if you have collaborations where you need to work with other people, this is where for the month of March and April, you say, I'll have it back to you in 4 weeks, instead of telling them you'll have it back to them at the end of the week. Give yourself extra time, under promise, overperform, as they say. If other people are struggling, know that it's temporary. And yeah, there's probably going to be a couple hiccups here and there. That's okay. Um, it's funny, like I have plenty of clients travel during Mercury retrogrades, but it is the classic like leave early for the airport. Don't go into the coffee line the last minute before your plane is boarding, et cetera, et cetera, because it can just get a little too tight, a little too rushed. They're going to be retrograde from the 15th of March till the 7th of April. So again, about mid-March to mid-April, effectively. And this pre-retrograde shadow for Mercury is not starting quite yet. Actually, so today again, today is the 25th. On the 28th, we're going to have Mercury starting their pre-retrograde time. So there's about 2 weeks where Mercury will be building into the retrograde, slowing down, slowing down. So we might even start to notice, even before March 14th, that things are starting to slow down, communications, travel, buying and selling, more, just difficulties around that. Again, even a little bit before the 14th. They station on the 14th, and then they station again direct on the 17th. Their post-retrograde phase ends on the 25th of April. So the Mercury stories, if there are any outstanding challenges with little details about things, plans, not going through by the end of April, should all be in the rear view mirror, should all be resolved by about April 25th at the latest, because then Mercury will be done retracing all of those past steps. So that's Mercury. And I guess it's worth noting too that the Mercury retrograde, similar to the Venus retrograde, is going to be happening across Aries and Pisces. So looking at the house topics of Aries and Pisces, How are those going to get woven together over over March and April? So for this, again, theoretical Sagittarius rising, how are topics of creativity, children, rest, fun, sex, how is that related to fourth house of private life, home, dwelling, parents, ancestors? So there's a lot of mental experiments that we can do to think about how might these areas of life start to intersect in ways where, especially I'm reorganizing or rearranging those areas of life or tinkering with them. Okay, Mercury, then on the 16th, we get to our next void of course moon. But before we do, I'm going to check in with this chat, see how we're doing. Oh yeah, the spring equinox. Jeez Louise. Knew I was missing something. Yeah. Did I forget the sun's ingress on my list of dates? I think I did. Yeah, March 20th. Add it to the dates of interest. The sun enters Aries if I missed that. Uh, all right. We will get there though. On the 15th, we're going to have Mercury retrograde. And then on the 16th, we're going to start another void of course moon. The sun also by the 16th is approaching Neptune in adherence with Neptune. So this can be a time of a lot of potential confusion, lack of clarity. But on the other side of that coin, that's thinking about things in more of a material world sense, like, oh, I have to like go to a place today and fill out a form. Those are all very material world activities, material world achievement. Neptune tends to make those a little bit more difficult in a logistical way versus Neptune can be very great for spirituality, for art, for creativity, for relationships in terms of the way that Neptune helps us be accepting, unconditionally loving. Um, it's like it dissolves the boundaries between you and the other. But the other thing about that is with that dissolving a boundary between us and other, then that can be difficult energetically. So someone might need to still maintain extra good energetic boundaries around March 16th, 17th, 18th. Uh, by the time we get the 20th, when the sun enters Aries, then that spell breaks a little bit and we can get back into ourselves. So use that time, like March 16th, right before the spring equinox, to, if you need to like feel into the collective, feel into spiritual stuff, do some vision boarding, do all like the visioning and dreaming up of things. That would be a really good time for that. It's not a great time for, you know, being like doing all like the big leadership sun things. It's a little quieter. It responds. It doesn't necessarily charge ahead in Pisces with Neptune. On the 20th of March, that's when the sun will be getting back into the self, back into the charging ahead and the moving forward. But all to say, there's a few days there where spiritually, artistically, it's great. Logistically, info-wise, be careful, double check stuff. It is also that void of course moon, 16th, 17th, especially. Those are great days for spirituality, low impact things, rejuvenation, connecting with people that are familiar, who you love. All of that is great stuff to do on the 16th and 17th. That's what I'll be doing. I've already taken things off my schedule for some of those days. All right, and then we've got, yeah, the Sun Neptune conjunction also, the exact day is on the 19th, right before, because it's right in that degree, the 29th degree there. And so right after that, we're going to have the spring equinox. Man, how is that real? That seems crazy because during the equinox, we have equal amounts of day and night. And right now, I just feel like There's just been so little sunlight. And every year it's like I do this. I'm so dramatic. I'm like, it feels like the sun's never coming back. It just feels like that. It feels very soon. But I guess it's a good 25. That's about almost 4 weeks from now. But yeah, we're getting more and more sun in the northern hemisphere. Southern hemisphere, you're doing your descent into less light. But we will have equal amounts of light on the 20th of March. And yeah, I just wrote in my notes, I just wrote Sun enters Aries, and then I didn't say anything else. So Sun entering Aries, it is one of their favorite places to be. They are exalted, which means they're in very good condition. The sun is able to sun so sunnily. They're able to just sun. Very leadership, very doing stuff without permission. There can be in this first few degrees, this comes from Austin Coppock. He talks about this first 10 degrees of Aries as there can be a little bit of trepidation about not being sure, can I do it? Can I not do it? Like, but then as soon as they get that notion, like, yep, we're going, it's like, let's go, let's do it now. There's this kind of initiative that I wish that I could bottle up from Aries. They're so full of initiative. They think of something and they just do it. And I'm like, wow, I am too Saturn and too water. I'm slow. So I love Aries. I am so much looking forward to the sun being in here. And then if you have felt a little soupy in the prior week to March 20th, know that you'll feel maybe a bit more connected with the self, a bit more clear in some ways, maybe on the 20th and after. Now, this can also be spicy. So it depends on what context you're in and who you are. If you are in a situation in March where you need to advocate for yourself and stand up for yourself, it's going to be easier to do that after March 20th. If you are someone who doesn't need any help standing up for yourself and actually maybe like that's all good and you're good there. And on the other hand, maybe you struggle with spice or being harsh or something like that. Um, Talking about myself, I struggle with being harsh. Then in certain cases, we need to pull back a bit. We need to, maybe check ourselves before we wreck ourselves. It's very powerful. But also, a sun in Aries, it's a really skillful sun, usually. They're using that speed, that power, that initiative, usually in a very skillful way. So I'm very excited for that. That's really great. And I think, again, it'll just feel a bit lighter, clear, more energetic after March 30th. All right. And then the next thing, let's see. I think it's the cazimi. Yeah, the cazimi. Mercury or Venus, sorry. And they're both going to have one. Venus is going to join the sun. That's going to happen on March 22nd. And it lasts for longer than that. I didn't do the exact timing on it, but it's when Venus is Hellenistically within 1 degree of the sun. It's within 16 arc minutes if you're doing more of the specific for like astrological, magical like operations. There's a more specific one. I like to use the within 1 degree. So Venus or any planet being within 1 degree of the sun, they go through this purification through the heart of the sun. They go through the fires of the sun. And in that retrograde, moving through the heart of the sun, this is also a moment where Venus will restart their cycle that they have with the sun. And so this is the rebirth moment for Venus on the 22nd. And for not only whatever's going on, maybe with seventh house topics for this theoretical Libra rising, so in the Aries part of the chart, but then rebirth with the Taurus and Libra parts of the chart as well. So those areas getting a bit of a reset button, a refresh button if you want to, or if you need to. And Mercury's going to do theirs pretty quickly after. That's going to be March 24th. Mercury is doing the same thing, moving through those purifying flames of the heart of the sun. Rebirth for the Gemini and Virgo parts of the chart, and for themes of Mercury in general. So traveling, buying and selling, communication, listening, not only just speaking, but listening. Maybe there's a rebirth there for some of us that we can find or take advantage of. This is also a time for both on the 22nd for Venus and the 24th for Mercury, where they have a little window of better condition. So Venus things might go a little better. You might have clarity on relationship on the 22nd. You might have clarity about art projects or creative projects you're doing on the 22nd, or just about your art practices in general. March 22nd might be a time of clarity around matters of justice. That's something I haven't mentioned today. Venus can also be justice and fairness. So if some of the themes in Pisces and Aries have to do with justice and fairness in particular in relationship or community, yeah. And those themes might be getting some kind of rebirth as well. But we also might get a nice moment of insight around the 22nd around Venusian topics. Similarly, on the 24th, we are going to have the Sun meeting Mercury, and we might have breakthroughs, insights, sudden moments of clarity around Mercury stuff. So I like the 22nd and 24th. If you have good ideas, write them down. Then there's a Venus Neptune moment that comes up on the 27th. We're going to have Venus re-entering Pisces, meeting Neptune. So even like leading up to March 27th, this is our second of 3 Venus-Neptune conjunctions. And this is another thing too, I really dive into more specifically in my Pisces Aries Venus video that I made a couple months ago. I talk about Venus's relationship with Neptune, Rahu, and Saturn because Venus is doing this whole dance with them. So is Mercury. So this is where we over communicate the 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th. Definitely over communicate. If there's expectations in March, so just in general, March and April, being also very aware of our expectations that we have for ourselves, for others, for situations, and making sure that that's understood by everyone and that our expectations aren't getting wildly optimistic or wildly pessimistic or just unrealistic in general. It can go either way. So expectations sometimes can be interesting, but also the 24th through the 27th, great for art, great for spirituality. So do all those things. That's cool. Then there is a void of course moon on the 25th, 26th, and the 27th. So again, great for doing low impact, familiar, not new things. Maybe good for connecting with spirit or more subconscious things when a moon is void, of course, in my opinion. Less about doing those material world things that you want to turn out well. So put those down on the 25th, 26th, take a rest if you can. If you can't, and other people in the room are choosing to do things, you have an advantage and you kind of know how it might go down. Okay, and then we've got a few days left of this month, but I'm going to check in with the chat. I'm flying. I'm making great time. Let's see. So someone's asking about Venus retrograde in a solar return chart. Um, mm, I would need to see the whole chart on that one because I would want to know, Venus, but how's Mars doing? What house are they in? Like, I don't know. I would need to see the whole thing to say anything of use. Uh, oh yeah, KWOW is bringing up a beautiful and controversial topic of whether or not to gaze upon the baleful rays of the eclipse. And that's, I mean, it's up to you. I'm kind of naive sometimes, and I like to F around and find out. Um, I think it depends on who you are. If you're worried about it, then yeah, protect yourself from the baleful rays. Don't go underneath them. But I like to look at it. It's really interesting. I feel like it's like the naturalist thing to do if I'm gonna go outside and be like a watcher of nature. Like that's part of it, but it's my own opinion. There's no right or wrong. Whether you choose to be exposed to the baleful rays of the eclipse or not is totally up to you. And I do also like to look at them with the binoculars. It's pretty fun, but I can imagine how someone might think I'm just beaming it right into my brain, and maybe that's not good. I don't know, man. I guess we'll find out. If I do it too much, you'll know. Someone's asking if you can look up Antisha aspects in AstroSeek. I have no idea. Yeah, let us know if you find out. If you want to snoop around and see what aspects, if they let you choose or change that. They might let you choose like in conjuncts by degree or something. I don't know. There could be. All right. Great comments, everyone. Thank you. Yeah, one thing I didn't do this month that I usually do, but that you can absolutely go on AstroSeek and pretty easily look up the lunar enclosure calculator. And because I like to point out any major lunar enclosure closures between benefics or malefics, because it can be just days that feel a little easier, days that feel a little harder, or days when you're doing more easeful things versus days when you happen to be doing things that are difficult and require effort and discipline and things like that. I didn't do that this month just because there was so much other stuff to look at. But if you're interested in that and you're missing that, I do have that calculator linked below already. Yeah, okay, wow, me too. I definitely looked at the sky a long, long time before I knew that it was saying stuff. Which now I'm like, dang, I could have been learning this whole time, but I wasn't ready. Yeah, I needed more, t this bun needed more time in the oven before I was gifted the knowledge of astrology. All right, so we got a void course moon on the 25th. And then on the 26th, I feel like, yeah, this depends on if you follow Chiron or not. But we're having the third of three Mars Chiron squares. And I've been noticing those as a little tender of a day. So take care of yourselves and each other around the 25th, 26th, 27th. Um, could be a mind your own business day if you want it to be. But then by the 27th, it'll pass. But yeah, I've been noticing for me what this has been and the other dates. So the first one was on October 13th of 2024. So mid-October of 2024, if you want to look back in your journal or your calendar and see what was going on, if there's anything tender or um, just emotionally difficult that you might have been dealing with around middle of October, anything where there's maybe feelings of vulnerability, wanting to be seen and heard, but feeling a difficulty around being seen and heard in a way that makes you feel accepted. I think all of that really speaks to like the soft, squishy nature of Cancer, and the kind of vulnerability in that water sign, and then that mixing with Aries, which is more of this individuation and expression of self, kind of with far less regard than in Cancer. There's a little bit of crunchiness there with self and expression. And so again, first time was October 13th of 2024. The second one was February 3rd of 2025. So very beginning of February. And the third one again is on the 26th of March. Um, I did identify something for myself, just to give people an example. Back in October, I was feeling a little difficulty around like my online presence and my 12th house ass having difficulty being seen and understood. And all of this, Buddhistly, this reference to self and constant reference to I, me, and I must be understood correctly, and all the pain that comes with that. That's how I was feeling in October. And then it's funny because then around the beginning of February. If you're familiar with Capitolia online, I'll have to link her below now because I said her name because she's awesome. And she is, or they are more of a like an advertisement kind of branding, social media expert person, but they're also very like occult and metaphysical, and they work with those communities a lot. I went to their class. They had a class on being online and being brave and all this stuff. And it made me feel a lot better. It was very healing and it was very tender and dealing with a lot of insecurities that I was having. So that was what was going on, the second one. And now I'm thinking the third one. Now, like, this is the third of these rodeos that I'm feeling like I'm in a lot better place and knowing kind of now how to move forward. Like, Mars is now moving direct. Um, they're moving over these places they've already been, but they're moving direct. And so there's this kind of symbolism of taking actions and doing it in a progressive way. That's feeling like I'm progressing in something. That's what it feels more like. So if this were the first of the three, I'd be giving more of a cautionary vibe. Being this is the third one, I'm going to have us really looking for more healing vibes, more being on the other side of this journey that we might have been on actually since like last October. Chiron stuff. Chiron stuff is recurrently difficult, challenging things. It's like a thorn in the paw. And it's like every 5 steps, you're like, ah, that's right, that's still there. Why is this still a problem? That could be a Chiron thing. And again, the fact that this is dealing with water and Mars and Cancer, I think the nature of it is a bit more tender and soft and squishy. So we got to be careful again around, and two, just even though I'm feeling better given it is the third of three, still on like March 25th, 26th, 27th, just be kind, a little extra kind to each other. Or if people are feeling a little like crabby, yeah, let them be crabby. Maybe they'll be better in a week. Um, okay. Venus is back in Pisces by this time. Oh, we'll definitely be able to tap into on March 28th, the moon is going to be with Venus and Neptune in Pisces. So we'll be able to tap into Venus's re-entrance into this place. Venus is with Rahu. Don't overdo it at the end of March. Don't overdo it with indulgences, yum-yums, partying. Um, keep your Saturn healthy boundaries around with some of that stuff. Relationship-wise, at the end of March, there's a lot of energetic openness with Venus and Neptune being together that March 27th, 28th, 29th into the next month. So might need extra good energetic boundaries at the end of March. If you're enjoying a really ooey gooey romance thing, yeah, enjoy it. Don't hold on to it. Like, I mean, if you're in a committed partnership, whatever, it's fine. You have nothing to worry about. But if you're like dating and it's like new and it feels like just so romantic, enjoy it. Let it be. And it might be ephemeral. Let Venus get through some of this stuff in Pisces and then see how you feel mid-April. That's what I would say about dating at the end of March into April. Because yeah, it's just very, it could be, a temporary, just beautiful experience. Um, we'll see how it plays out. I think that's all I have to say about Venus. And then we have three more things to consider. The solar eclipse, our last void moon, and Neptune. So let's round it out. We've got our final eclipse of the month on the 29th. It happens right before Neptune has not left Pisces yet. They're still in the last degree, but we do have this solar eclipse. Let's see. It's going to be, I'm not going to be able to make my pina colada. I only do it if I can see it. This one might not be visible where I am. I did forget to do that too. Sorry, everyone. That's very Googleable though, like not to, you know, be a cop out for me not doing my due diligence here. But yeah, that is something that I usually do that I didn't either, is look up the visibility, like who can actually see it, depending on your location. that is easily Googleable. So please do and go see if you can see it. Well, it is happening at 9 degrees of Aries, which someone from either my Q&A or my, I don't know when, but they pointed out, it wasn't me that noticed it, but thank you to whoever that was. I forgot. But they pointed out that this eclipse is really close to where Venus stationed retrograde. They station at 10 degrees of Aries. Now, this is a new moon. So, beginnings and endings in general, each month we have a new moon, which I feel like is such a nice time of regrouping, letting go of what we've done for the last 4 weeks, getting ready for the next 4 weeks, setting intentions, resting, all of those things. And when it's an eclipse, it's just extra. So, it's a great beginning, a great ending, extra important or meaningful thing. Now, this could be compared to 6 months ago, this could be something coming to a close that has been going on for 6 months. This could be the start of something else that maybe 6 months from now in September, you'll be see fruiting or coming to fruition or something. But watch at the end of March if you're noticing anything wanting to begin to unfurl or open up in the Aries part of your chart. So again, Aries comes in again as just a very active part of the sky. So for this theoretical Pisces rising, this would be great beginnings and endings in their second house of money, resources, needs, how they get their needs met, all of those types of second house thingies. What, and if you don't perceive, yeah, there's nothing new here. Kind of in a holding pattern. You can use this energy as a restart or a refresh button if you want to start using a different spreadsheet system to track your money. This would be a great time, you know? It feels like a time where you till up the soil so that you can plant seeds and have them to grow better. But this is not necessarily a time of initiating things. I wouldn't start anything on the 29th. Also, this is getting near one of those void of course moons, so I don't love this time for starting stuff. That being said, just natural beginnings and endings can happen around this time. Uh, hmm. I mean, I guess one general thing I always say about every eclipse is that if there is drama, again, like you can choose to deal with it after this lunation cycle. You can choose to table it until when is the next new moon or full moon? I mean, you can table stuff until like April 12th. We have a full moon the day Venus stations. That's fun. Um, if there's drama around you during eclipse season, I tend to like to let people be wild far away from me. I'll love you from over here. That's how I handle those. If anyone's concerned, but otherwise, great beginnings, great endings with the Aries life topics. We have Saturn who's going to be reappearing in the morning sky on the 29th as well. When did they leave? Sorry, y'all. I gotta look. Yeah, so about end of February, around February 22nd, we had Saturn disappear from the evening sky. So then Saturn significations getting quieter, going through their own kind of rebirth. Yeah, I guess I forgot to think about Saturn going through the heart of the sun. I didn't really talk about that, and I should have. Man, what a month. So sorry, we got to go back. On March 11th, Saturn, still under the beams, meets the heart of the sun. And this also purifies Saturn and their topics. And so for Aquarius and Capricorn, you can also look at the things signified by that. I'm an Aquarius rising. Maybe I'll be going through some kind of rebirth or something in March. I don't know. I can't tell I'd have to sit with that for a second. Very excited to see what that's going to be about. It happens once a year. Once a year, the sun goes around and meets Saturn. So we get one of these once a year where it's a nice little reset button for Saturn. And we might also have some clarity. So again, very similar to what I was saying with the Venus retrograde on the 22nd, the Mercury retrograde on the 24th. The Sun Saturn conjunction on March 11th, um, this is going to be a time when Saturn, you might have clarity over boundaries, clarity around responsibilities, clarity around commitment. So watch for clarity around any Saturn thing. Discipline, boundaries, commitment, duty, burdens, obstacles. Maybe you'll have a some kind of clarity around an obstacle you've been dealing with. And or we can shelf all of those Saturn things and just remember that also it might be a time of clarity around your Capricorn house topics, your Aquarius house topics. And then at the end of the month, when Saturn comes out of those beams, more around, it depends on where you are, then we'll be seeing those Saturn things come into a shape, a form. Ah, this is what the Aquarius and Capricorn life topics are going to look like now. This is what my commitments are going to look like. They've settled into a form. My commitments, my responsibilities, my duties. And then we know that while we're talking about it, Venus and Mercury will do the same thing in April. They will become visible. They'll start stationing direct, and then those topics will all start to settle down and take shape. So, long story short, then we just know that March is a very changing month. March is a month where there might be a lot of things rearranged, reorganized, and to just be open about that and not try to grip really tightly to any one plan or outcome because we're probably not going to see how that stuff shakes out until end of April into May. This is just another one of those things. So now we'll start to see at least Saturn stuff shake out by the end of March. On the 30th of March, we have, is that when Neptune? Yeah, Neptune is entering Aries and we get our last void of course moon. So the 30th, the 31st of March, not great for starting material world things, planting, hunting, fishing, making the cake look like the picture. Not great on March 30th, 31st, into the 1st of April. Better for low impact, familiar things, spiritual activities, artistic activities, things where we like to connect with spirit or the ether. Much better on the 30th, 31st for those things. And then we're going to have Neptune changing sign for the first time in like 14 years. So they got into Pisces in 2012. That was when Neptune entered there. I don't know if they wobbled. Did they? They might have wobbled a little bit. Yeah, I think they did. So around 2011, 2012, that's when Neptune entered Pisces. And yeah, now about 14 years later, they're going to be entering into the next sign. So for a lot of us, like for me, I'm 37. So I have for a little under half of my life, I have had Neptune in Pisces. So my experience of Pisces, I mean, it has been so long that Neptune has been in there that you got to start to question like, is it me? Is it my second house? Personally, that is so Neptunian. Is that the Pisces? Is it part of my personality or is this a transit? And I'm really curious and excited to see what is Pisces going to be like. I don't even have time to be worried about what Neptune is going to be like in Aries because I am just so much more interested and to see what Pisces is like with them not in there. Because too, I think a lot of people conflate Pisces with Neptune, and I'm not going to go on that today. I'm not going to let myself go down that road today. But Pisces is not always delusional. That's Neptune. So watch for the delusion to go into your Aries part. But that we're going to get a taste of that, and that's just going to be for a number of months. Yeah, till October 22nd. So March 30th till October 22nd, we're going to have a little preview of what the next. Okay, well now let me see. I didn't even look. Is it going to be another 14 years? Like 12, 13, yeah. So it's going to be a while. Neptune is inspiration. Neptune is visions and imagination. And so what Neptune is going to be doing in Aries is going to be putting that imagination, inspiration onto a new set of archetypes. So whereas dreaming about Piscean things like, you know, all of us loving each other versus Neptune in Aries is dreaming about what I could do as an individual or something. So maybe Neptune and Pisces dreaming about what we could do as a collective. It might go more toward the individual in Pisces or in Aries. We will see how this turns out. I'm not going to try to make too many comments on it. When it comes to the outers, like Pluto and Aquarius, I do not like to be the first one to talk about it, to be honest. I have not been here long enough to be doing that. In my opinion, I would love to just watch it for a minute. Like, I know how to squish together, I think a lot of us do squish together Aries and Neptune things, and I will do that over the next several months. But I think for today, I just want us to know, yeah, I'm more interested in like the house topics that it's going to be affecting. So look at the house topics, the life topics that are in Pisces for you. That's about to get more clear. That's about to get less confusing, less spiritual, less of that. Aries, though, those house topics are about to get maybe more confusing, less clear, more spiritual. So I want us to, at least for this first part here, get a lock on the life topics that Neptune might be affecting differently and which ones are going to get a rest. And that goes too for any planets that you have in Pisces versus Aries. When Neptune leaves, those Pisces planets are going to get a rest from it, and the Aries planets are then going to have to start dealing with Neptune. Okay, I think that's what I have to say about that. Let me make sure. Yeah, that's about it. Let me make sure there's no comments or questions. Otherwise, we've done it in an hour and a half, and the sun is going to set in a little bit here. So I gotta get out of here because I didn't turn my lights on. Sam asks, how can you not follow Chiron? I mean, I tried not to, but it was impossible. I wish they weren't there. But if they wouldn't be there, then some other planet would take on those archetypes. So we can't escape Chiron. But it's good to know. They're also the healer, and I think the older you get, they're the coach, mentor, healer archetype Chiron is. And so that's why, like I was talking too about this healing from a challenge, finding tools, finding resources, that can also be part of the Chiron journey. Oh yeah, March 26th is in someone's solar return chart. Oh, yeah, I see. And again, yeah, I need to see. Oh yeah, okay. Nice sun. All right. Yeah, it's like when you see retrograde planets in general. So someone else had asked about solar return charts and retrograde planets. And I think when I see a retrograde planet in a solar return chart, that year is going to be imbued from birthday to birthday with doing things differently, challenges with those planets' archetypes, with the topics or themes that they rule over. But I do also like to extrapolate and know that as that year progresses from birthday to birthday, we also know that those planets eventually straighten out. They station direct, they move forward. So then maybe too, we can extrapolate that as your year progresses, then that retrogradedness might clear up or lighten up a little bit as well. But yeah, the kind of three ways that I talk about retrograde planets, which I use this everywhere, is just that, okay, there's the difficulties. We get it. Yes. The ancient astrologers really harp on that. Delays, that goes along with the challenges, that there are just delays to how things turn out or play out. And then I also like to think about them being counterculture or subculture, doing things differently, going against the mainstream. And you can be doing a lot of beautiful, great things in that vein, and going against the mainstream is more difficult. So take what you will, nuance from that. And then just the inconsistency of a retrograde planet, then for that year, yeah, those things might be inconsistent for you. So for me, I just had Mercury retrograde in my last solar return chart. And I did resolved to do a lot of things differently. There were a few problem areas that I was like, yep, that's a problem. That's a problem. I'm going to do that differently, not doing that again. So I think the retrograde is a natural, fruitful cleaning up moment of life. Naturally, it's just very helpful. And when it's in your solar return chart, then you're just getting an extra heavy helping of that for your year. So yeah, embrace doing things differently. The real thing, I mean, no, I'm not going to go into it, but maybe I should for my next question and response, solar return chart stuff. But I'll leave it at that because, yeah, it's important. Hello, Caroline. Nice to see you again. And I hope everyone with solar returns have great years ahead. Thank you, Astro. That's very kind. Yeah, and I mean, as always, so last question, someone's asking it like if they have a Venus at 20 Aries and we're having this retrograde at 10 Aries, then that person, if you natally have a Venus in Aries, then you're also having a Venus return, at least by sign, close enough. Um, so it's this moment of really reviewing Venus things for you. It's like how on our sun, like the sun comes back to where the sun is in our birth chart. And often on our birthday, on our solar return, we are contemplating ourselves. Ooh, what have I accomplished this year? Where did my will take me? Where would I like to go the next year? Like these are usually, we have a party about ourselves. We blow out little candles like it's a very sun. When any other planet returns back to itself, it's like that planet's version of that. So when Venus comes back to themselves, what things are we reflecting on? We're coming back to like in a way where we're easily connecting with our own Venus versus when Venus is in all these other areas exploring, experiencing different things in the sky. When they come back around to the same place, the same environment that they were when you were born, then it's that moment of coming back to the self with Venus. Ah, what do I value? What are my preferences? What are my values? What do I desire? Watching your desire bounce off of stuff. That's a very great practice. And when Venus has having their return, it's a great time to consider all those Venus things in your life and also your relationships. How are those going? What do you like about them? What don't you like? How would you change that? Those are all very good things to do during that time. And then the last thing I'll say about it is that, whenever you have any placement in a sign and natally, and then there's some weather that happens over those placements, I say you get a front row seat. You get to see more clearly maybe than other folks what that is about or more loudly. Um, that's what I think that means. So good luck. And yeah, thanks everyone. Hit the like button if you can. Hit the subscribe button if you're interested in keeping up with this. I have some charities also linked below. I like to highlight charities here and there. And I've got a few to look at: the Bail Project, Doctors Without Borders, and then there's some smaller ones about eSIMs, which are great to donate to uh, folks who have a hard time getting internet. So look at those. And yeah, I've got my Venus and Aries and Pisces video listed. I don't have the retrograde video listed. I need to look at that. Um, yep, I got my cheat sheet, my 20-page cheat sheet. It's not really a cheat sheet. It's the beginner's guide. It's free. That's also linked below if you're new to astrology. That might be fun. And wait a couple days, I'll get the timestamps up. Thank you everyone for your contributions and for your comments and questions. It was so much appreciated, and it always makes it more fun for me as well. And I always appreciate everyone's feedback. If you're listening to this later and you've got any comments, you can put them below, or any experiences that you're having. If you feel comfortable sharing those, I am very happy to read that too. Yeah. Yeah, someone did a poop emoji, and yeah, it's very real. All right, thanks everybody. I hope you have a good month. It's a busy month. Um, it's a busy month. It's very exciting. Like there's just so much to see. Usually those void of course moons, we get like three of those a year-ish, and they're spread around. This year, they're all in the same month. It's very rare and weird, and it doesn't normally happen like that. So don't worry that like every year there's a month like this. There is not. And if you are in a position in life where you're looking at March and you're like, I've got to find an apartment, I have to sign a lease, I need to get a job, I need to start this activism project, whatever you're up to out there, you can do stuff in March, but then use the dates, bob and weave around those those void of course moons, bob and weave a bit around the retrogrades if you can, and know whatever gets funky like now, the second half of 2025, eh, we'll be in a better position then. Things get better, I think. So hang in there, everyone. And any questions? Oh, you can also email me, aligninglight@gmail.com. It's shortened aligninglight@gmail.com. Any questions, you can also send me there if you want more privacy. And final thing, I got to plug myself, book at my website, www.aligninglightastrology.com. If you are older than 55, you get 10% off. Use the code thank you 10 because reading for people who have lived a lot of life is honestly so fun for me and it like lets me see so much that it's like I should be paying you. So older folks get a discount. Come on over. And then two, I have a discount star student, which is 15% off of tutoring and mentoring services. If you are someone who is starting a reading practice and you need help with that, I also am an open book in those sessions. And then I also have a sliding scale. So if all of this stuff is beyond your material capacity, your money capacity, I have a sliding scale where like a lot of people qualify. You can check out my website, the frequently asked questions. I've got things there for the sliding scale. If that's you, if you are anyone who's been oppressed by our systems or society, if you're a part of a marginalized or disenfranchised group, you qualify, no questions asked. You don't have to tell me a thing, but you can email me and then we can set it up there. Uh, yeah, I think that's it. Yeah, I've just been reading a lot over here, I got a backlog of books. Yep, maybe that's what I should do for retrograde time is read old books that I've been meaning to read. All right. I hope everyone has a good month. I'm rambling. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other, have snacks. Long game approaches. All right. Thanks for listening. See you later, everybody.